It's so easy to think of the goal of the audition to get the job. And if that is the case, then most auditions you're going to go through and you're going to fail, because most auditions end up in a no. And so then you go through life just failing and failing and failing and failing. And at a point I pivoted and went, the goal of this audition is for me to connect with some people, to meet, if it's an in-person, to meet some people, to look them in the eyes. You're human, I'm human, let me see you. And also, I'm an artist and I'm about to do my art and do a great job at it, to really turn up, to kind of do all the work I can to prepare for this audition and be proud of that. And when I started doing that, that meant I could leave an audition room and be like, I did it.
Congratulations on another great show.
Oh, thank you.
You're just like the secret weapon. They just drop you in whenever they want to make sure they have
I'm very happy to be that secret weapon. Put me in.
This is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors.
Hey.
Yeah. So I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card? And this might be interesting because I don't know if y'all can tell, but he's not actually from America. So you might have been working a while before you even got that.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I had done like 1 or 2 jobs, but the job to get my SAG-AFTRA card, I had an O1 visa, which is what allowed me to work in the States. But it was very kind of like dodgy back then. They didn't know. So anyway, I turned up. I was doing this show called, I got cast as a reoccurring on this show called Dirt with Courtney Cox. And I was so excited about it. And I turn up at the makeup chair and they're like, okay, O-T, have you got your visa? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've got the visa. And I gave them the visa and they go off. And then I'm in wardrobe now, and they come back and they're like, actually, we need the long version of your visa. Oh. So immediately I'm like, go. I'm like, oh yeah, I got the long version. So I go and get them, give them the long version. I had it printed up someplace. So we go and start rehearsing. And the rehearsal's going on, and someone comes up to me and is like, oh, dude, we need more visa. And so I call up my lawyer. I'm like, I need more visa. Give me more visa right now. They need an extra part for the part. Anyway, we carry on rehearsing, like, for ages. Courtney Cox is like, why are we still rehearsing? Because they're just trying to, like, buy time. Anyway, eventually what happens is one of the ADs comes up to me and says, hi, sorry, O-T, we couldn't sort it out. Can someone take the mic off of O-T? And someone takes the mic off of me and I get like ushered off stage. And then another African-American actor gets pulled in on stage. They put my mic on him and they're like, okay, we're ready to go and action. And my very first shot, I was standing on the side watching someone else do my part. It was a heartbreaker. But eventually they got it sorted out. They did find out that my visa was okay, and they brought me back the following week, and I got my SAG card.
Okay, thank God that has a happy ending. As a different character, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a funny thing. I mean, it's basically the same part, just with a different name. I think they actually gave me my name for it. So anyway,
really?
So there I am.
So that poor guy was no you. They were literally
I don't know where they got him from. They keep a store of black actors in the basement. Hey, you, next! So...
That's amazing. Well, again, congratulations on a fantastic series. I mentioned you're a part of so many good shows, and you have another one coming up, No Good Deed on Netflix.
Yeah, that's just come out yesterday. And
yesterday? Okay.
Yeah, which was a real wonderful experience. I mean, because I've been doing quite a lot of drama, so to kind of do something more in the comedy vein was pretty exciting. Yeah.
Although it's kind of a dramatic comedy.
Yes. It's kind of like, well, Liz Feldman, who did... her last show was kind of this kind of, is it a comedy? Is it drama? It's kind of like a genre. That's right. It's kind of like a genre busting show. So, I got a chance to do
comedy on Loot.
I did comedy on Loot. In fact, I wrote and directed a show called Max, which is on Hulu, and that's another comedy. Yeah, that's it. Oh, Chris was great. I managed to have a threesome on screen with Chris Maloney. He was amazing. And, so yeah, I've had a chance to do quite a bit of comedy and drama. I love doing both, really.
Well, I was a big fan of The Presumed Innocent book when it came out, like in the 1990.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember how shocking it was, and the ending is so fantastic. Were you at all familiar with that when David E. Kelley approached you about the reimagining?
No, I hadn't read the book and I hadn't even seen the original series. I just got this script through and I thought, this is brilliant. I can't wait to see what happens at the end. So that had me hooked. And then as I was doing my preparations, I thought, should I go back to the source material or the original? I kind of decided not to. I thought there was enough there with the original. I didn't want to kind of distract myself too much. So Yeah.
Well, they're actually very different
Right.
because especially because like so much time has passed and the series has so much more it can delve into, and they changed the ending. See, this is why I'm surprised you didn't at least go to the book and look at the ending.
Yeah, well, I was told about the ending, and there was a big to-do about what we were going to actually have as the ending. There was talk of shooting 2 endings to even surprise everybody, but I think they did such a great job.
Yeah.
At that ending. It was remarkable.
At what point did you find out? Because I guess because at some point in the show, everyone is a suspect. Like, did you ever start to wonder about your own character?
I know. I was kind of vying for it to be me. But it was pretty late in the day. There were rumors. We talk about it, but it wasn't until like we were filming the last couple of episodes that it kind of like centered on the gossip. Because they didn't tell us officially. It was like, do you know who that is?
Everyone's like, it's me.
Right.
In some ways, one of the reasons like he is a suspect is near the start of the show, some people might view Nico as sort of a villain because, he's trying to supplant the current DA. He's in opposition to Jake Gyllenhaal's character. But what was your take on him from the start?
Well, I mean, I guess you always have to be sympathetic to some extent with the characters that you're playing and understand their reasoning and what they're going for. But I think at the same time, I looked at a lot of politicians to kind of like, I don't know, steal ideas basically, and from how they are. And there's this thing that so many of them have, which is like, you don't really believe what they're saying, but they're charming and articulate enough that you kind of might go along with it. And it's this dichotomy of something that's completely like inauthentic with someone who can be quite persuading, and that was one of the ways I kind of thought about him, that he kind of vacillates between those two places.
I can see how he got elected.
Yeah. Exactly, because you have to believe he could be elected, but at the same time I thought he's a smarmy mother.
But less smarmy, I get. Well, no, Bill Camp's character is not that smarmy, but I would have voted for you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Please vote for me for the SAG-AFTRA.
Did you do any sort of special preparation and research in order to play him, especially just learning all the legalese, I would think?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the legalese there's less of an issue. I mean, I guess, fundamentally is, we all know, like, we're trying to understand our characters' motivations, their backstories. And so most of my research was done on trying to find out how to embody the character, where his voice was, what his history might have been, his backstory. And so in the course of that, you'll hear some of the legalese and stuff, but in a way the line learning is something which comes right at the end for me of the process.
Why are people from England so good at American accents? And this very specific American accent, actually.
Oh, well, thanks on behalf of the English.
Tell the English I said hello.
Yeah, I will. I'll pass on your regards. But I guess I would just say for me personally is America has some of the greatest playwrights ever, and in particular for black actors, the best writers who are black. And so my first play was Le Blanc's, which is a Lorraine Hansberry play, and then I went on to do like a number of plays from African-American writers playing African-American parts. And so my greatest experiences coming up early on in my career were playing African-American. So I had to learn how to do that. And the other thing is that loads of our content is, like Friends is big in England. And so we just sit there and we listen to American accents over and over in a way that Americans don't, like you might like that British show, but it's not like show after show after show, interview with your favorite pop star and rapper,
I don't know. I had a pretty good like Monty Python accent when I was a kid because that's all I watched. That was horribly offensive, I'm sure.
Go for it.
Call blimey, governor. I warned you all.
No, I'm glad we got it.
That actually might have been my Dick Van Dyke, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it was good.
I am curious because, this is such a prestige show, such a great cast. Was there an audition process or did it come as an offer?
No, it did come as an offer, which I got to say was a little... Because I knew I was doing a bit of a take, the character's a little eccentric. You're not. I wasn't sure. Was I going to turn up on the first day and then go, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, would you stop all of that? Stop all of that right now. Which, by the way, has happened. And And so yeah, I wasn't really. So that's one of the advantages. Trust me, I do not like auditioning. I don't need to audition. Thank you. But one of the advantages of auditioning is at least you know you have the buy-in of the producers and the executives and everyone of what you're doing. And so in this, day one was a real like, let's see how this goes. And so so it worked out. Yeah.
I've heard people say that in a way you should think of it as you're auditioning the people you want to work with as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of thinking about it, but give me the job, please. Give me the job. I have so many mind tricks that help me through the auditioning process. Well, I guess, there's so many, I don't even know where to start, but I get some of the things that have helped me during my auditioning time. One of them is it's so easy to think of the goal of the audition to get the job. And if that is the case, then most auditions you're going to go through and you're going to fail because most auditions end up in a no. And so then you go through life just failing and failing and failing and failing. And at a point I pivoted and went, the goal of this audition is for me to connect with some people, to meet, if it's an in-person, to meet some people, to look them in the eyes. You're human, I'm human, let me see you. And also I'm an artist and I'm about to do my art. When I was 13, 15 years old, I went to drama class and we used to pay money so I could sit there and act because I loved it. And here's another opportunity for me to do my art and do a great job at it, to really turn up, to kind of do all the work I can to prepare for this audition and be proud of that. And when I started doing that, that meant I could leave an audition room and be like, I did it.
Yeah.
There's a success, and the success or failure is predicated on my own actions. And the fact that they're going to give me the job or not give me the job, that's not part of the paradigm of success and failure. And so that was a really big part, repositioning success as being within my hands, of me being able to cope with the trauma of auditioning.
Speaking of trauma, did you ever have any of the really awful, legendary, embarrassing auditions?
Oh man, I mean, gosh, I mean, yeah, just I actually remember one. I think it was one of my first movie auditions, and I was in New York, and I just got to New York. I was bright-eyed, and there was this part for a movie where the guy, he's African American, but at some point he starts speaking Shakespeare. And I was like, I've got a great idea. I'll do the Shakespeare part in my English accent, genius. And so I go in there and I start, I do the audition, and I can tell the person is not interested in what I'm doing at all. And then I say, okay, then start doing the Shakespeare part. But no, and then we finish, and she goes, "Oh yeah, thanks for coming. Hey Cheryl, why don't we get some of those British actors in who can kind of do one of those parts?" And right in front of me, and she was like, "Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, see you on Broadway. I think there's some people." And I was like, "Oh gosh, But
she couldn't even wait for you to leave the room.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. It's tough. Yeah,
take it as a compliment because she didn't realize you were British.
Yeah. I'll that's the silver lining of it. I was like, oh God, I failed. Yeah, it can be pretty brutal. The show I directed, I got to be on the other side of the chair, and it's so funny when you're there going, it's all the most of the horrible things that happen to people in castings, getting a casting late. Oh, it's tomorrow and it's 15 pages. And you're like, what are you doing this to me? When I was on the other side of that, I found myself in that situation where I'm like, you're trying to find the location and you're trying to do that. And you're like, oh my gosh, we haven't found that actor. We'll send it to them. And what scenes? Well, that scene and that scene and that scene. And suddenly you're like, oh gosh, I'm doing the same things that have been done to me. And it really takes a lot of thoughtful. And so that's why it's lovely when you get a great casting director, a great producer who kind of is thoughtful about an actor and goes, okay, what are they going to do to have to turn up as their best?
Speaking of cast, the cast of Presumed Innocent is so fantastic from top to bottom. In fact, I think I started to like your character a lot more in episode 2 when I realized he wasn't as bad as Peter Sarsgaard's character. He has a line where he says something like, he's like, hey, we're going to do this right. Like, this is personal. And I was like, oh, okay. He actually is good at his job.
Right.
What is it like to, every day show up and get to share scenes with these pros, especially the greatest actor of all time, Bill Camp?
I mean, it's to some extent, actually, it's almost hard. You had to steel my mind not to be intimidated.
Yeah.
Because they're so good and so experienced. And, especially for me when I was coming in with that kind of character. You got to come in hard and strong. You can't softly into it. You have to kind of like, and so there's that. But they were really welcoming. And the other thing about them is that they're all theatre background. Peter, Jake, like Bill, like Ruth Nager, like they're all from a theatre background. And the court is a kind of stage. And so there was this kind of theatre vibe about shooting it, which I don't know. Yeah, it was great. It was playful. It was alive, and yeah, it's just an honor because you can always bounce off the energy and the expertise of these amazing actors.
I was actually going to ask because you're a part of so many great ensembles. Like every show you're on is like it's not just that you're great, but like the whole ensemble is fantastic. Do you think you're drawn to that because of your theater background?
Yeah, it might be. It might be from that, but I think it's just a real point of focus for me. I want to work and be around great artists, inspiring people. You know, I've got some members of the team here, management and agent, and they all like inspire me. They're like, and that's the ideal. Like that's what we hope for. We don't always get to choose the parts, so we got, you know, especially when you're starting out, it's like you kind of take what jobs are available. But now, at this point in my career, it's a real point of focus to try and like be around inspirational people.
Do you, when you have these scenes where you're going head to head with someone like Jake's character playing Rusty, do you have a way to sort of like check in with each other afterwards? Because you guys get intense, and so to be able to go like, we're good, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jake's a strong person.
Yeah.
You know, he's a strong-minded individual, as is Peter. And I think we understand how robust and, you know, and so it's about the work. You know, we kind of trust that we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Can we make the work? Can we make this scene work? Can we push each other's characters to the limit? And obviously, if there's safety things, like there's going to be some kind of physical alteration, then sure, we might do. But otherwise, now we just go at it.
What was the most challenging part of this role or just doing this show?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think there were a lot of changes last minute sometimes with the script and stuff. And so, you know, that would be, you know, there'd be certain actors who'd come on set and be like, okay, I'm not going to say that line, and that. I know one of them would be like your cue line. You'd be like, oh God, okay, so how am I going to get to my line? And so that would sometimes be challenging, but only in the best way. And I will say that everybody who came at it, from the director saying we should change this, or the actors or the writers, it wasn't done from ego. It was really done from like trying to service the story and telling it the best way it can be told.
I'm kind of surprised to hear that just because it's so tightly plotted. That, yeah, where you're like, is this called, am I the killer? Is this
Yeah, well, but this is one of the great things about having wonderful directors, because like everyone can kind of be focused on their own story and like, I don't want to say, oh, would I really sit like this or whatever. But the director, and we had two amazing ones who keep an eye on the whole story and go, look, you can't do that because at some point that, and like I said, because people weren't acting from ego, they were acting from really wanting to serve the story. Once they figured out, oh no, we have to serve that part of the story later on, then, you know.
So as long as they knew, you were like, I'm in good hands.
Yeah, that's everyone's role, and us having a strong director like makes all the difference, because if the actor is the loudest, strongest person on set, then things can go awry pretty quickly.
Everyone's like, oh, we know. I want to hear those stories. Having a theater background, too, probably helps you with rolling with things. Have you ever had, like, strange things happen on stage that you just had to push through?
Oh, so many things. You know, I did so many years in theatre, and when I first started, I was doing community theatre, and you know, we'd do theatre in old people's homes, and you know, you'd have like, no, don't do that, come, he's gonna kill you, you know, and you know, and like also, you know, you have to kind of roll with that, or you know, when I did Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the National, you know, there was one time I went to play my trumpet, and my trumpet was broken, and I was like. And like you had to play this for the rest of the play to happen. And luckily I was on stage with these amazing actors, Lucy and Giles, and and they would just started cut Clint Dye out. They would just start cussing me out in character on stage. And so we improvised for about 15 minutes while I was like desperately trying to fix my trumpet. And they would just be like, "You got to fix that horn, man. What's wrong with you?" You know, so yeah, that was pretty good.
And everyone's like, my favorite part of the play was when the horn was broken. Got to keep that.
New third act, yeah.
We actually have some questions from the audience, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. Some of you have nice handwriting. Suzanne Smart wants to know, how much fun was it to go from such a decent man in a Handmaid's Tale to a bit of a snake in Presumed Innocent?
How
It was
dare
super
you.
fun.
How dare you? No, you got it exactly right. I mean, diversity of roles for me is the thing that excites me most about doing my art. You know, the ability to go from period drama to comedy to horror. Like, I love the whole gamut. I've done radio plays, I've done commercials, I've done, everything. And I just love it all. And exactly what you said, going from playing like a good guy to a snaky guy it is part of the joy of acting. Get to explore different parts of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't put good guy in quotes. Luke's a good guy.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe in good guys. But,
believe me. Well, I mean, you played Barack Obama.
Yeah. Another human being.
Yes. Yeah.
An amazing human being.
Well, is that something like that intimidating, playing a real person, especially when they're still alive?
Oh, terrifying.
Yeah.
And not only that, because like you play Lincoln, no one's going to be like, "Oh, Lincoln didn't walk like that. Lincoln didn't talk like that." Like Obama was pretty much the most recorded person. Like everyone knows how he walks and how he turns and how he laughs and how he, so everyone can have an opinion about how well or badly you do it. There's very little room for kind of like doing your own thing with him. Even if you were doing George Bush too, we the amount of footage of George Bush compared to Obama, it's like 1,000 to 1. And so it was really intimidating, but really fun to do. And to work opposite Viola is like, stuff of dreams.
And with something like that, there has to be a degree of imitation. Like you're playing a character and you're making it your own, but obviously we all know what he sounds like.
Yeah, and it was a real learning curve for me. Going back to like the diversity of roles part. Like when I make Nico de la Guardia, then I decide he sits like that. I decide he sits like that. Or maybe sometimes he doesn't sit like that. I can make any decision. I've got like this blank canvas pretty much on which to paint. And learning how to kind of have this idiolect of Obama and the way he sits and the way he talks and the way he laughs, but also finding your own creative expression through a script, which again, by the way, was another one where like we turn up on the day and the director be like, "Okay, no, we're not doing that. I don't want to do that. I don't like that. I don't like this. Okay, you're going to come in and you're going to say something, and she's going to say something. I'm like, I've got to do this as Obama, bro. Like, a little bit of notice would have helped, This is Suzanne, who again, extraordinary director, and I think she did a great job with it. But anyway, that's part of the challenge of doing something like Obama.
I knew you were doing Susanna, and I was like, that's a pretty good imitation. You got the accent.
No, I don't like that.
What do you think your most challenging role has been?
Oh, Obama's definitely up there. I mean, that was really hard. It was really, I had to, because there's a part of my body which was like, run. Even as I was preparing for it, it was like, don't do the work today. Just why don't you go watch some TV? And so I had to kind of like beat myself into the kind of like discipline necessary to do. And like in the months leading up, it would be like, okay, I have to spend this many hours a day on The Voice. And I spend this many hours a day looking at video and this many hours a day learning his history. And that was really exhausting. It was really, really, really challenging. I'd probably say Obama.
With something like Presumed Innocent, because you're creating a character who does have different mannerisms, and you're not acting in your natural accent. Is there a way, like when you get to set, that you sort of like get into that or prepare? Do you have music? What sets the mood for Nico?
I generally spend all day in a facsimile of the character. From the moment I get into the car and any phone calls I have on set and everything like that. And so I think it's more of a kind of like, from the morning and I get into the car and I start like warming up into it and I get up into the makeup chair. And so, but I use music more to get into different emotional states rather than specifically characters, although I have used it to get into characters. but yeah, and then sometimes, for Nico was sure that everybody was a idiot, and so every now and then when I wanted to find the center again, I would just be like, just remember, you're looking at Jake, and just remember, he's nothing to you, and so sometimes I have touch points like that. But.
And by the way, Nico's not necessarily wrong.
Right.
I am curious though, and again, I actually like Nico. I appreciate him. But do you take that home with you at all? Do you have to leave it at the set, or do you go home thinking everyone's an idiot?
No, not really. I mean, it can be, if you're doing sometimes on Handmaids, you do a really upsetting scene and you spend most of the day weeping or something like that. It can be exhausting physically and somewhat emotionally, but I don't go home and feel traumatized.
Yeah.
I don't think I go home and I'm like, I'm better than you, my 3-year-old. He's better than me in most ways. But yeah, so that's not really a big issue.
We have a question from Caro, I believe, Guzman. Caro. Sorry. What are some values you find yourself having to remind yourself as you navigate this industry?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I think earlier on in my career, I faced issues around stereotypical characters, black stereotypical characters, and stories which were just not transgressive in terms of what the dominant narrative was around black people, and having the strength sometimes to be able to, and also the politic of being able to try and create 3-dimensional characters, to turn down roles, to offer different things to potentially how the story could go. I face that a lot more. I think things are much better now than they were 20 years ago when I first came out. There was just some stuff I'd read and be like, how do you get away with it? You've just... So that's challenging. But yeah, but it's not so much now. And then also just making sure that I owe it to myself and to my art that I turn up. And sometimes you can be on set and be around people who are phoning in, people who are just there picking up a check, people who are there, I guess for, the wrong reasons, but not the reasons that match with my value system. And it can be really tempting if you're tired, if you've got something else going on in your life, to be like, oh, I'll just... And so one of the highest values for me is just reminding myself how lucky I am to make a living through acting, to work as an actor, to be an artist, and try and turn up every time and not take for granted the opportunities.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
When you do something like Max, which is a show you created, I believe, and you're first on the call sheet and you're sort of running things, stepping into that, were there things that you knew you wanted to set as an example, or are you aware of the pressure of it all starts at the top?
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I get to work with Elizabeth Moss a lot, obviously Handmaids, and she produces and she directs and she's starring, and she does it with such grace and chill and and when I was making Max, I mean, albeit we had a much lower budget, so it had a much more kind of guerrilla sense to it, but it felt like a whirl, trying to wrestle a whirl, it was so much going on, and as much as I could, I tried to set an example of fun and joy and play from the top, but it's taking on all those tasks is a real challenge. Yeah.
Isn't Jake's also an EP on this show?
That's right. Yeah.
So again, he's
right.
setting a tone, and it's,
yeah. It's interesting though, because the actor EP role, and this isn't the case with Jake because he was very involved as an exec, but sometimes actors are just get an executive producer credit because they're a big actor kind of thing, and they're not really involved into kind of the intricate details of production. But Lizzie, for example, she's talking about gaffers and DPs, and she's so into the the granular aspects of filmmaking.
We have a question from, I think it's Jessica Bryden, is that right? Sorry. Did you have an objective for your character? What was his main goal, and did you build backstory?
Yeah, it's funny. I sometimes work with this acting coach, Saxon trainer, who doesn't deal with objectives. I find them really useful as a tool to, finding my way. So, yeah, I ultimately, super objective was around, becoming president of the United States, like to rule the world,
Yeah.
And then objective within this case was to look great by the end of it, which probably means winning the case. But if he wins the case by nefarious means, that means he doesn't get to achieve his objective of looking good, because that's ultimately he wants to get reelected. So I thought about things like that. But yeah, I do objectives and super objective and obstacles. I do build a backstory. I have an idea of my relationship, my history with each of the characters and how I feel about them. And so all of that Stanislavski stuff I generally find useful as one of the main tools. Yeah.
I always think that like every role teaches you something, whether you learn to ride a horse or I don't know if you learned anything about the legal system or if there's anything about Nico you'll take with you. Maybe you're always a good arguer.
Well, I guess I didn't know how. I was a bit surprised about just how well received. I mean, and also, some people hated Nico, but how received. And so I guess it was a reminder to me to just keep being brave in terms of choices that you make, and that I don't know, we just got this one great life, like swing the fucking bat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, people were very passionate about this show. Like, would they come up to you while it was airing and be like, "You leave that nice Rusty alone"?
Yeah, they came online. I got lots of stuff. Yeah, we don't need you in our country. Okay, bro. Block you.
Well, you're affecting people then.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point of art, is to make you feel something.
Well, again, it's such a fantastic show. Has anyone here seen it for the first time, or have you all? Wow. Okay. Well.
Oh yeah, go back and watch it from Ep 1. It's, it's a cracker.
Yeah, and you're in for such a treat. I was trying really hard not to be spoilery, so, but you did it right.
Yeah.
Again, you can catch all the episodes on Apple TV Plus. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.